Good morning. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. I'm Amy Kochek with Amy Kochek Creative. I'm so excited. Last week I took the week off. This week we're coming full force. I have 3 upcoming interviews this week, so make sure you're staying tuned to my page and looking at the promo banners because we're having 3 super exciting interviews that are coming up. I want to talk a little bit about what Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People is in case this is your first time. So I am a ghostwriter, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker. I am all things story related. That's what I do every day. That's what I believe in. I believe that your story is the most powerful asset that you have. And the thing that connects us most is our stories. And sometimes people are afraid of their stories. They feel guilty. There's a lot of shame attached to them. So I am doing everything I can to free ourselves from that mentality of fear of sharing our stories because that's what connects us. Your story comes to heal you first, and then it goes out to heal other people. So I currently have wonderful, amazing people in my circle that have overcome some amazing things. I am meeting people that have amazing stories, and I just want to share this on a larger platform, and I want to use my platform to share those stories. So I encourage you, one, if you have a story, if you know someone that has a story, contact me because we want to highlight them. And another thing is that when you're watching these things, reach out to the people that I'm interviewing. They're coming on, giving their time, but at the same time, they're offering a space to connect via story because that's the things those are the things that connect us the most. So this morning, I'm super excited. We have Bethany Dotson on the interview today. I met Bethany over a year ago. I met her at a meetup group, and it was called Women in Transition, and Bethany had just made her transition when I met her. And when I tell you, in the year that I have known her, a little over a year, the amount of work that she has put in to make major changes and major shifts in her life in such a short time, she is like on a different level in a year. I aspire to be her and what the work that she has put in this year, and it's so evident. And her story is so amazing, and I think that it is worth sharing, and it is definitely worth listening to. So, Bethany, I'm going to throw it to you first. Introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. Let us know who you are and what you
do. Okay. Well, thank you for such an amazing introduction. I am Bethany Dotson. I am a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist. And I moved to St. Petersburg or St. Pete a little over a year ago from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that move was very sudden but intentional. And I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas. I lived in Los Angeles. I was a former actor for many years in LA, and decided that I wanted to get my life on like a regular path, like have a normal job, meet the guy, have the family, have the white picket fence. And I moved back to Texas in 2012, and that's kind of when, like, I guess I call it like my pivotal years, where there's like a 5-year period where I was in one toxic relationship, immediately followed by another toxic relationship. And that really prompted me to move here. So I learned that I'm not cut out for the normal 9-to-5 job. And I'm called to do something greater and serve women in a bigger way. So
I love it. Okay, yeah. So let's chunk that down. So let's start with, I know you said you had like many pivotal moments, but we had talked about like
one pivotal moment.
Yeah, and all of us, right? Like there's so many pivotal changing moments in our lives, but we're going with the most recent. So set up the story before you make the pivotal moment, before the change happens. Where you at? What's going on in your life before it happens, and then what was the pivotal moment?
So I'll highlight the most recent. I'll highlight the pivotal moment when I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This was in 2015. I had just left. I call it toxic relationship number 1. We were living together in Houston. I moved back to Dallas. I gave myself a time limit because I was 35 at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 months and I'm going to dust myself off and I'm going to get myself back out there. And so 3 months went by. I went to therapy. I worked on myself. I started running. I started working out. And I was like, okay, that's been enough time. And I'm just going to start dating again to put myself out there. And I started dating and I was like, oh, this is like not that hard. Like, what was I so afraid of? And I'd been dating for 1 month when I met my ex. And my ex was toxic relationship number 2, but I didn't know it at the time. And this is what I find so fascinating about abusive relationships is that they often feel like you have met the one. Yeah. Like the chemistry is so intense. The connection you feel or I felt was like out of this world. I never felt connected to someone so strongly as I had to my ex. And he was super sweet, incredibly charming, very emotional, very sensitive, very supportive. He knew that I had just left a bad relationship. And I had the walls up pretty high in the beginning. And I was like, oh, hell no, like I'm not, no. But I was so drawn to him that I let the walls down. I let him in. And it was so amazing. And the first, this is so short. It was so amazing in the first 6 weeks. And then the first incident happened. And I remember the first incident happening and I was like, oh no, I can't, like, this can't be. It was so polar opposite of what I had been shown previously that I was like, I can't possibly be in the same situation that I was in a year ago. And this possibly, like, he's just having a bad day. Like everybody loses their temper every once in a while. Like he's just stressed out. So I turned my head to the side. I looked the other way. I totally ignored it. And anyway, fast forward, on again, off again for 3 years. Glorious honeymoon cycles, followed by destructive fallout fight, followed by a breakup, I'm leaving you, blah, 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 followed by getting back together again. So fast forward, I moved to Tulsa to be closer with this guy because at that point in the beginning, I was living in Dallas and he was living in Oklahoma. And yeah, the final chunk, I guess the final leg of our relationship ended a year ago, a year plus, a little bit over a year ago. And the pivotal moment was really when I decided to break away for good. And that felt so incredibly scary. And in many ways, this relationship was very addictive for me just because of all of the highs and lows and the intense passion and like off the charts chemistry. I mean, like off the charts, was so strong that I did not trust myself to not go back again. Like, and I had gone back like an embarrassing amount of times. Like I had to leave. Like I had to physically remove myself far, far away, change my phone number, block him on every platform possible, in order to start over again. So my pivotal moment was really, that was kind of long-winded, but my pivotal moment was when I decided I am done.
Yeah.
And I'm moving forward. So
first of all, it wasn't long-winded. I love a good Okay, so I have to ask you because like a lot of times the perspective of people who maybe haven't experienced an abusive relationship, like the perspective is always just leave. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
right? Just leave. So from the perspective of someone being in it, what is the pull that, like, knowing that this is not good for me, but yet not being able to escape? What is that pull that keeps you in that cycle?
It's really the hope, because for me, when I met him, I had just left a bad relationship. And even though I thought I had given myself enough time, I was really vulnerable. I had no self-esteem. I was like, no decent guy would ever want me. I had no confidence in myself, even though I was trying to get back out there. And the pull for me to continue to go back was that it's so weird. It was that when it was good, it was like glorious. It was amazing. And we're going to get married. What are our kids going to look like? We're going to live in this beautiful house on a hill. We're going to travel the world. We're going to save all this money. We're going to adopt a kid from Africa. We're going to do. So there's all of this like future talk about how wonderful our life would be together. Yeah. And that really happened during the makeup periods. And so that's what I clung to when things were falling apart, when he was being abusive, when we were done, when we were in a breakup period. And even though I knew, like, I was afraid of him, even though I felt that, you know, being tense and anxious, there was still a part of me that I couldn't believe that it was an abusive relationship, because it felt so good when it was good. Yeah. And that's what kept me in it, was the hope. And in all honesty, it really is. It really was an addiction. And I feel, I think loosely, I'm not, you know, an expert, but the definition of an addiction is continuing to use something to go back to something, even though it's harmful to you. Yeah. And when I look back on the 3 years of my life that I was with him, I was dead on the inside. Mm-hmm. I drained my savings. I had no mental or emotional capacity to drive my business forward, because I was so leveled and drained emotionally from keeping myself in the relationship, from recovering from, it's like a horrible fight. So yeah, I look at pictures of myself from that period, and I just look, my eyes look dead. Like I just, like a shell of a person, literally. So yeah.
So what gets you to the point of saying, I'm done? Like, I gotta go. What was that moment?
It was in part, to be honest, I kind of, I feel like it was divine timing.
Yeah.
I wasn't 100% sure that I was making the right decision, to be honest. Like, I was just like, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
And at that point, things had gotten so bad that I didn't feel safe anymore. And there was no way, like I couldn't sleep at night knowing, like, with the thought of like staying in the relationship. I had to get out. And luckily there was a giant blowout fight that made it easier, because I'm not sure if I would have had the courage to leave on my own.
Yeah.
Just cold, like walking away. The fight kind of gave me like the motivation. Mm-hmm. Like, so yeah, it was just like, I had like blind faith. We broke up on March 1st, mm-hmm. and I moved here on April 4th.
Wow.
And yeah. And
so talk about that. What, like, how did you figure out why St. Pete? Why so quick?
So I during the time that I was with my ex, we were in like a breakup period, like a month or two breakup period. And this was before I moved to Tulsa, and I wasn't sure if like moving to Tulsa was the right thing for me anymore, because of so much drama and because of the pull to this person. And I was working with a client who recommended that I speak to a locational astrologer. And she said, I think you should talk to Julian. He's really, really, really good. I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I read my horoscope in Glamour magazine like once every like 6 months. I'm not sure if that's, you know, going to be the right thing for me to do. But I ended up talking to him, and he accepted my case. He accepted to work with me. And I was completely blown away by how accurate he was able to describe my current situation without knowing anything about me other than my date of birth and my time of birth. He was able to describe the pattern that I had with men, the types of men that I drew in, which tended to be more aggressive, like wound up, kind of angry, hot-headed, like a man's man, like very masculine, but like with a temper. Yeah. He was able to tell me just kind of the patterns that were not serving me by staying there. Yeah. So he recommended the west coast of Florida, St. Petersburg, like Sarasota, Tampa Bay, Fort Myers. And I like, that was like never, ever, ever on my radar. Like I would have never even thought. I was like, I didn't even want to come visit Florida. I was like, it's fucking hot and humid. Like I have no interest. Like I want to go move to the mountains. Yeah. Like I'd move to Colorado or I'd move to Portland way before I'd ever moved to Florida. And so, it's kind of weird. The astrologer, he warned me that if I moved to Tulsa and if I stayed in this relationship, that it would continue to get worse. Yeah. And I hate it. Like it sounds like a fortune teller, mysterious fortune teller, but he was right. He was right. And when we broke up, I did not want to stay in Tulsa. I didn't feel safe there. I didn't really want to go back to Texas because I'd been there, done that. California was too expensive. And so I basically just said, why not? Like, and in 2 weeks, I found an apartment and shipped all my stuff out here, and I just drove with my cats. I drove out to Florida. So and I've been here ever since. So
yeah. Okay, so and I always like to talk about after the pivotal moment, right? Because like I feel like the pivotal moment's like that glorious moment where you're like, I'm doing it. And like I remember when I always tell the story when I quit my job as a personal assistant and I was like, I'm gonna own a business. I went out that night and I was drinking that night and I kept making people toast me. Like to Amy, you know, like she's changed her life. She's doing it. She's done it, and everything's going to be perfect from this point out. And it's usually quite the opposite. So I want to hear, like, you're here, it's new beginning. What happens? What has this last year been like for you after you made that big change?
So I feel like I'm just now coming alive, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm just now waking up. I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life when I moved here. I thought I had royally fucked my life up. Like I was a hopeless case. Yeah. My life was a mess. When I moved here, I was like, I knew no one. I found a meetup group where I met you in a hotel room after I'd been sobbing my eyes out in Atlanta. And I was like, I need friends. I don't know what it is. So it was hard. I found a great, amazing therapist, did a lot of trauma work, found other women's support groups. Yeah, I got clear. I was working in one business as a virtual assistant, like an online business manager. I moved here and I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on building that up. And I built that up and I was making my income goals every month, but I was working for clients that were not a good fit. I was saying yes to anybody that would work with me. And And I realized, no, this isn't really what I want to do. I really want to be focusing more on yoga therapy and helping women break the cycle of bad relationships, because it is possible. And then just for me personally, like my life, I get tested all the time. If I go out with a guy, I find myself still magically drawn to a bad boy type, to a guy that works out all the time. There's some kind of like shadiness in his past, and he's a little hot-headed. So I find myself still pulling that in. But now I know, I'm like, no. I've been there, done that. So it's not like I moved here, my life was immediately perfect. Like I moved here, there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of like doubt. There was a lot of just processing all of the grief. And, you know, I still have no idea what I have a direction, but I don't have, there's not a lot of certainty. I just feel like I'm creating a business from my heart. I'm living on faith. I'm living on trust in the universe. And I'm just really, I'm honestly really, really grateful for the last 3 years of my life in that relationship, because it would not have put me on this trajectory, and it would not have given me so much passion and fueled it to really help other women who have been in that situation.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you had to give up. So anytime we make big decisions in our lives and embrace something new, we have to let things go. What did you give up? What did you have to let go of?
Yeah, I had to let go of, and this is going to sound really ironic because it wasn't a toxic, abusive relationship. I had to give up comfort. And even though that relationship was bad and it was unhealthy for me on many, many, many levels, I was comfortable with that. And I had to let go of the fairy tale that one day we'd finally get it right. That one day, you know, if he just went to therapy, if we just did this, like that one day it would work out. I had to give up all of that. So I really had to get uncomfortable. I'm still uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable every day.
Right.
But yeah, I had to give up the comfort. And, you know, I had to give up, I was in Oklahoma, which was like a 4-hour drive from my family. And I had to give up living close to my family. So the biggest thing was comfort, though.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned this already, but this whole scenario and the patterns you notice in your own life with abusive relationships has kind of led you down this path of yoga therapy. Explain exactly what yoga therapy is to people who may not know exactly what it is, and how that connects to your passion of helping women.
So in simple terms, the yoga therapy work that I do helps people reconnect with their intuition and who they are on the inside, and like their true self, if that makes any sense. I know true self can be like a woo-woo esoteric term, but in short, I help people reconnect with their self-worth and their intuition. I do that through their body, and through their breath, and through mindfulness. And I don't really, all I do is I just kind of have the guardrail. I don't really make someone realize their self-worth. I just create the parameter and the space so that they feel safe enough to explore and take that journey on the inside. So that's the short answer, the most direct answer of what I do as a yoga therapist.
Yeah. So just from speaking from personal experience, because I have had the opportunity to do a session, I didn't know what yoga therapy was. So I thought that we were going to be like, I was going to your house and we were actually going to be doing yoga, and I was going to be like sweating and stretching. It was not that at all. But here's the thing. I've always struggled meditating, like really getting quiet within myself and like just quieting my mind. When I tell you that experience, I have never had such a spiritual experience in my life. Like from like my entire body, I felt like was quiet and at peace. And for the first time, like you said, it was like healing, but it was like healing through my body, through my own body, like recognizing certain areas of my body and how I felt about it. And that brought up like, oh wow, I have a lot of shame associated with my midsection and like just things I had never tapped into before. So just in general, it's a very fascinating thing that you're doing. And how specifically do you use that to help women who are caught in the pattern of abusive or damaging relationships?
So when women are, and I'll speak from my own personal experience because I don't think that my personal experience, I don't want to say that it's universal, but from my personal experience, being in an abusive relationship and not just one, and then watching my mom go through an abusive relationship with my father when I was growing up, there's a lot of shutting down your intuition. There's a lot of shutting down your instincts. There's a lot of shutting down what you want to say, who you are. There's a lot of stuffing yourself into a small box to make the relationship work and to not trample toes, to continue to walk on eggshells and keep the peace. And so there's a lot of disconnection that happens from who you really are when you're in an abusive relationship. And along with that, there might be a lot of shame around your body. You might feel completely unattractive. You might feel like no guy would ever want you because you have such a shitty, shattered past of brokenness behind you. So there's a lot of lack of confidence. And I help women slowly come back to themselves through their body and through awareness and through taking ownership of their part, because it's really easy to say, oh, he was abusive, my abuser, I'm the victim. But really, there are two people in the relationship that always make up a relationship, even if it is toxic and abusive. There's, what I try to help women see what were the choices that you were making. And oftentimes those choices are driven from very, very low self-worth, very low self-esteem, a feeling of I don't deserve, I'm not good enough. So I help women rewrite that patterning, and I help them realize that they are meant for more.
Yeah, I love that. What is, in the past year, what would you say is one or two major aha learning moments? What are the one or two things that you can say you took away? I know there's probably hundreds, but what's one or two?
So the first one is that I learned that my last relationship, even as abusive and toxic as it was really a wake-up call from the universe for me to do more healing on myself. And that relationship was very, 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 very similar to my relationship with my dad. My dad is also an abuser. So it was like I was reliving my childhood trauma all over again 30 years later with this guy that I just so happened to have intense, crazy chemistry with. So there's no coincidence there. That's lesson number one. And then lesson number two is that I'm learning to trust myself more and to trust my instincts, even if they seem off the wall. And that would be what I would that if I could relay that to people that are watching this, is to always trust yourself, always trust your instincts, even if it's like a shot in the dark and you're like, I have no experience, I have no money, I don't know how the hell I would ever get this thing off the ground, I don't know how the hell I would ever do this, but it's on my heart. I would encourage anyone watching this to just trust yourself and trust your intuition.
Yeah, that transitions to the next question. So I want to talk specifically I want you to talk specifically to women who are stuck, and maybe not even just stuck in an abusive relationship, but just stuck in a relationship that they know that they want to get out of. But there's fear of what comes on the other side, and then there's the component. What would you specifically say to that woman or those group of women that are like, I want to get out, how do I do it?
I believe in you. It takes an incredible amount of courage to leave, and an incredible amount of bravery to leave and break that cycle. I mean, it's probably, I'm not going to lie, it will probably be one of the most difficult things that you ever do. However, the reward is greater than you could ever imagine. The life on the other side is so worth it. Especially if you have children, putting your children in an environment where they witness love as violent, where they witness love as instability, where they witness love as fighting all the time and daddy hits mommy all the time, ingrains a pattern subconsciously in their brain to where when they are an adult, they magically attract that same pattern. So I feel like if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your children. More importantly, do it for yourself. And that it's not easy. It's work, but it's incredibly rewarding and probably the most important work that you'll ever do in your life.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so one more thing. For anyone that wants to get in touch with you or find out about yoga therapy or who you are and what you do, where can they go? How do they contact you?
So you can find me at BethanyDotson.com. That's my website. You can also connect with me on Instagram. My handle is @_ like the little flat line, Bethany Dotson. Or to other places. I have a Facebook group. This is for women who are trying to attract healthy love. You can email me to join the Facebook group. That would be Bethany@BethanyDotson.com. There will be a weekly video, weekly training on how to come back home to yourself, and inspirational posts, content there that'll help you find the courage to leave, or if you already left, find the courage to rebuild your life. And the last place is my Facebook page, which is Bethany Dotson Yoga Therapy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we'll put those in the comments too, so that they'll be able to reference them. But Bethany, thank you so much for your vulnerability. Thank you for making the jump with your life and using your story to positively impact other people. One of the most powerful things we can do, right, is like we take our experiences, we take the pivotal moments of our life, and we change them into our mission and our purpose and our calling. And who better to help somebody come out of a relationship than somebody who's been there and gets it and has gone through the process. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart and your vulnerability today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for everybody that watched live. Those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for joining us for Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. Please reach out to Bethany. Check out what she's doing. Check out her content. It's amazing stuff, and it's sure to encourage you. Have a wonderful Tuesday. See you back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have another exciting interview. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Bethany.